So I just watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new Netflix requel, remake, sequel, reboot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I do want to talk about that because I have some thoughts, but before I get into that, I think I'm going to do a little backtrack and talk about Texas Chainsaw, the franchise as a whole. And then, before I get into the actual Netflix film, I'm going to give you guys a little update, a little life update, and a little channel update as to what is going on with the future of this project that I'm doing right now. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a long, ongoing franchise that is extremely weird and has not really been anything I would call tonally consistent ever, really. I mean, you have the first film, which is just a pretty down and dirty movie about a bunch of hippies who get murdered by a family of cannibals in Texas. There's really no other way to sum it up because that is the movie. I have never personally been the biggest fan of it. I appreciate the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre for what it is. I think it is a very well-made film. I think Tobe Hooper did a really good job achieving what he was going for. And it's a gross, dirty, awful film that achieves making you feel incredibly put off and a little nauseated. Everyone is sweaty. They were filming it in like 100-degree heat every day. There's a lot of very physical action and reaction, and it is a very raw film. That is kind of the reason I don't like it, mostly because once you get to the middle of the second act all the way through to the end, it is a lot of just screaming and nothing else. And again, I do really appreciate the visuals and the tone and the dark humor of the family dinner and how just truly vile and disgusting and dirty everything feels. But I can't say I like the movie. I do appreciate it. I don't know if I like it, per se. That movie spawned 3 sequels, all of which were completely different from the original in terms of tone. I mean, the second one is a much campier horror comedy of sorts that introduces new members of the family, like Bill Moseley as Chop Top, who is just so over the top in the most fun, crazy way, and it's a very different style of film than what we saw in the original. Then the third one is The Next Generation is a film, and the fourth one is divorced of all that and goes into like some weird Illuminati cult fanfiction meta film that I can't call it good, but I can certainly call it brave and its own thing, and, you know, definitely having its own identity, weird as that identity may be. Then in 2003, we got the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and this is a film that I actually really like. I actually really enjoy the 2003 film with Jessica Biel, and, you know, I feel it's one of the only good Platinum Dunes slasher remakes, if you can really call the Texas Chainsaw Massacre a slasher film. The remake definitely makes it more of a slasher film, but it keeps that frenetic, crazy vibe that the original had while adding depth to these characters that really made me feel for them more. Not to mention, the situation that they're in is just horrifying from the jump and becomes infinitely more horrifying as things unfold in that film. I really appreciate that. I appreciate that the gore, which was not present in the original film, and I applaud the original film for that, but I do like the way the gore is utilized in the remake because it does add an extra level of just, like, repulsion to the whole thing. It is a product of the early 2000s. There's a lot of blue-green gross filter thrown over the whole thing to make it more edgy. I don't love that. And I mean, yeah, the remake does have its flaws. I'm going to skip through some of the franchise now because I have not seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre the beginning. And the less I say about Texas Chainsaw 3D, the better. I've reviewed the movie Leatherface on this channel. I did not like it. Y'all know this. And now this brings us to 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They dropped the. It's just Texas Chainsaw Massacre now because I guess at this point it's just another Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because there have been like many in this series. Even if you just discount the rest of the franchise and only count the original, there was still a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So now this is the second one of those. Before I get into this, I do want to talk quickly about the changes that are happening on this channel. You guys have been seeing a lot less of me, and there's a reason for that. On this channel, I have always felt that I feel a bit self-conscious, a bit constantly aware of how I'm looking and sounding on camera. I'm trying to drop that. I'm trying to be more myself, and in doing that, I am shifting this over to a different format. I'm not going to stop uploading on here completely. You will still see me from time to time, but from here on out, if you want to hear my thoughts about like a lot more content and a lot more of the stuff you maybe have been wondering how I feel about, I have a podcast. Those Horror Pals podcast is officially a thing. It is live. It is me and my friend Jenna talking about all of the releases that we want. It's probably going to be roughly 2 to 3 movies an episode, unless it's a big franchise thing like Scream, which we did for our first episode. We do go into spoilers, fair warning. But I really do just need that change in format. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable, and I feel like I can be my passionate self. I feel like I can talk about all the things I want to talk about without feeling restricted by the format of YouTube and feeling like I have to cater what I say to how it makes me look. I don't know if that makes sense to y'all, but content-wise, it lets me upload less while talking about more, which is, I think, what I need to do. I can't keep up with the constant release schedule, but there's so much I want to talk about, and a podcast just gives me more of a space to do that. So I really hope that you guys do come check us out. We are live right now. The link is down below, but I'm also going to put it right here. I'm very excited about this change, and I really hope you guys migrate over to listening instead of watching, because it's a really big deal for me. It's an avenue for me to talk about the things that I love in a way that makes me feel more like myself. It's a good change. It's an exciting change. I hope it's a change that you all appreciate, and, you know, I hope you follow. I hope you come check out the new format and the new podcast, because I really am excited about it. I hope it blows up, and I would love for you all to come on the journey, especially because it opens the door for you guys to, you know, come ask questions and chat with us, because we're going to have it open to you guys and have it be something that you can participate in. I really want that, but I want that in a capacity that is good for me mentally. So YouTube is going to be less, podcast is going to be more, and that's that. Let's talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre is directed by David Blue Garcia, and it is written by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayaguez, the two who wrote and directed the new Evil Dead and Don't Breathe. So that is an interesting start. It stars Elsie Fisher, Sarah Yarkin, Jacob Lattimore, and a few other people, and it tells the story of a group of influencers who buy a town in Texas that's abandoned except for an orphanage, and then through a series of events end up incurring the wrath of Leatherface, who is now 70 years old and trying to not kill people, and he comes out of retirement to kill a bunch of yuppie 20-year-olds. This is an interesting film, in that I don't know who this is for. I saw the trailer back when it dropped, and it looked kind of whatever. I know a lot of people were up in arms about the line.
Try anything and you're canceled, bro.
Which is, yeah, it's a pretty bad line, but, like, you know, the internet is hyperbolic, and everyone says everything is the best or worst thing ever, and what a surprise. This movie came out, and everyone was saying it's the best or worst thing ever. Is it? No. Is it good? I don't know. I didn't really like it, but I'm not going to say it's bad. There's definitely things in here that I think people will like, but it's kind of a mess, and I'm going to talk about it. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a weird film. Like I said, the plot is very strange. You have a bunch of social media influencers who moved to Texas because they bought a ghost town to open up some new something or other. And the movie makes a point to have a gas station owner address that he's mad about them gentrifying. Which, like, okay, cool. Maybe that's the theme here, right? Well, no, because, I mean, the town that they're buying is A, completely abandoned outside of an orphanage where one old lady lives with a grown-ass Leatherface. 2, the issue of gentrification is never brought up again. Then we have Elsie Fisher's character, who is revealed rather early in the film to have survived a mass shooting. Which, like, weird to put that in your film that's about a serial killer committing wanton violence. But okay, I'll play along. It's Texas. There's some commentary about gun violence, I guess. And then that doesn't go anywhere. In fact, it actually goes in the opposite direction, which I'll get to in a minute. I don't know what this movie is supposed to be about. That's the thing. Is it about misjudging strangers because they're, like, just being assholes to people because they're from Texas? Is that it? Is it about gun violence because of the school shooter subplot that doesn't go anywhere? Is it about gentrification? I don't know. I don't know who this is for. I don't know what this is about. That being said, if you're a fan of, like, ridiculous over-the-top violence that has no real justification whatsoever, you might like this. If you're a fan of Halloween Kills, you might like this. That movie was just a nonstop buffet of bloodshed, and I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was good. That's kind of how I feel about this, except I feel a little more negative about this, because where Halloween Kills kind of knew what it was and had a conceivable tone, and that tone wasn't really what everyone wanted, but it still understood for the most part what it was trying to be, which is just a campy, ridiculous slasher film. This movie's trying to do that. This movie really wants to be Halloween Kills, but it's trying to be Halloween Kills in a movie that's also got, like, a half-assed school shooter angle. It's trying to be a funny, ridiculous, over-the-top slasher film with crazy, ridiculous violence that is so extreme that it is comical at times in a movie with a school shooter subplot. It makes me feel icky. I don't like that. It makes me itch. On top of that, then you have the whole fact that Leatherface is just an unstoppable juggernaut in this movie, much like Michael Myers, who he just massacres a party bus full of people with a chainsaw, and also at one point throws his chainsaw across the ground to get someone who's running away. Mind you, this is a character who has, up until this film, been mentally a 3-year-old. A character who is significantly mentally handicapped and also was abused for his entire adult life. So I don't even know how he got to an orphanage to be taken care of by an old lady who is probably about the same age as him, and she just got him to not be a dangerous murderer for like 50 years. I don't really get that. But then you factor in, the whole him being an unstoppable juggernaut and, like, having the intelligence and understanding to not only track down and actively hunt the few kids who unintentionally caused the accidental death of his foster mother. The fact that he even has the cognitive understanding of that chain of events is weird to me, but also the fact that it then he then goes on a revenge spree is weirder to me, because he's a mentally handicapped adult that was abused by his family into being a butcher for them. That's all he knew up till, like, age 40. And then because it's not trying hard enough to be Halloween Kills already, we bring in Sally Hardesty's character, who is, mind you, not played by Marilyn Burns, because Marilyn Burns died almost 10 years ago. So we have Sally Hardesty show up in the role of basically Laurie Strode in Halloween and Halloween Kills. Sally Hardesty, who was never a final girl and never did anything of merit outside of scream and run away and lose her mind, has become a Texas Ranger who is actively seeking Leatherface for revenge, despite the fact that Leatherface wasn't really even the one responsible for the deaths of her friends. It was more, you know, like his insane family who were actively, like, participating and manipulating him into doing it, and, like, being cannibals in Texas feels a little weird. And also unearned for Sally Hardesty, who, again, didn't really do anything in this franchise and has never really been, like, a staple character of this franchise. But then, and I'm sorry to go into spoilers here, but I'm also not, because I just, there's a lot I need to talk about. Then she faces off against Leatherface, who does not remember her or acknowledge her because, again, 70-year-old toddler with a chainsaw. And she fights him in the streets of some Texas ghost town. And he's, like, deflecting her shotgun shots with his chainsaw, which is so funny. Then she just dies. Or, I'm sorry, no, I take that back. She gets run through with a chainsaw and lifted over his head and thrown, like, 30 feet into a pile of garbage. And then, 5 minutes later, gets up to shoot him again and save Elsie Fisher, which I will admit I laughed out loud. It was a very funny moment. I could not believe that we had reached that level of crazy. But then she dies, and it ends up feeling like a parody of Laurie Strode. Like, I have to acknowledge that there was some level of probable satire there. There has to be. There's no way you can do something so blatant like that and not have some self-awareness to it. I don't want to call it bad, because there are plenty of people who are enjoying it a lot, and if you're just gonna watch this for pure wanton violence and, like, crazy splatter-heavy nonsense, yeah, you're gonna have fun with it. I definitely can't say I didn't have some fun with it. I wish it had a more consistent identity. I wish it had a more consistent tone. I wish it wasn't juggling Malignant-style slasher over-the-top insanity with school shooter angle. Don't love that combo. You don't get to glorify violence while also trying to shame it. It doesn't work that way. You can't be Halloween Kills and be a serious film. There's some good here, though. I mean, lots of fun violence and gore. Like I said, I mean, it is crazy over the top and silly and ridiculous, and if you're into that, you will have fun. There's some fun carnage here. Elsie Fisher is a good actress, and she does fine with what she's given here. She's not given anything here, which is a shame, because the character has a lot of rich depth that could be mined, and it's just not. Colin Stetson's score is actually very cool. There was talk of him wanting it to sound like an old machine coming back to life, like a chainsaw. I think that's neat. I like that. It does succeed in that. I mean, whether or not there's a discussion to be had about that chainsaw working after 50 years is a different story entirely, but I digress. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't love this movie. I was mostly confused by this movie. I don't know who it was for. I don't know why it was made, because it doesn't really feel like it justifies itself at all, outside of, like, maybe being a rights grab for the studio. I'm just sort of baffled, but I do think that there is something to be found in it that people will enjoy. It just was not for me. It did not satisfy my urges, and it did not satisfy my expectations. So I'm a little let down by it. I think there are plenty of other people who are as well, but I know there are also plenty of people who really like it. So do with that what you will. I'm not gonna really say don't watch it. I'm just not gonna go out of my way to watch it again. It's mercifully short, if anything else, so it's not like it's gonna waste your time. Yeah, As always, y'all, thank you for watching, and I really, really hope that you come over to listen to the podcast and come, join me as I take that step into a new medium of this, because I'm tired of being on camera, and I'm tired of curating myself for the camera. I don't want that. You don't want that. None of us want that. So I'm gonna go be on a podcast and be myself. And if you like that and you want to hear me be myself and talk about horror stuff with a friend and not just into a void, come listen. It's really cool. It's even fun. It's even nice. Bye, guys.